Thanks for joining us for another episode of Dynasty Theory. Last episode of May, going into June strong. I'm interested to see, and it kind of plays into what our episode's about tonight, but those June designations, those cuts, the money hits the cap space. I believe that's tomorrow. So I'm excited for that. We are joined by the New York Ranger fanatic, Dan Lamagna. What's up, buddy? You should be feeling good.
Hey, one of my teams has to be good, and it just happens to be hockey. So I'm on cloud nine, as you know, one series away from the Stanley Cup championship. So great opportunity there, and excited about tonight's show, man. You're taking us out of the rookie realm and into some new topics here to get us ready for the Dynasty season.
Yeah, trying to stay ahead of things here after discussing rookies for months on end. But this is probably the perfect time to get into this stuff because, Mitch, you and I talked about it before the show. There's not much going on right now. And I say, Mitch, you all know it's Mitch Sorensen. What's up, Mitch?
What's going on? Like, I don't know for you guys, but to me, it feels like the Super Bowl just happened recently. And so, like, I'm looking, we have 3 months until the start of like actual football on the field. And I don't know, Dan, you could probably speak to this better than I can, but I swear the older that I get, the faster it comes every single year. Like before it'd be like, oh, these next 3 months are going to take forever. I'm like, no, these 3 months are going to fly by because my kids are out of school and it's going to be miserable. But they're going to go back to school and it's going to be amazing.
It's true.
That's Mitch, the family man. Mitch, the family man over there.
I think summer vacation in conjunction with Dynasty Theory, the time will fly.
Yeah, like I said, end of May. We are working through the OTAs here. Then we have official training camp preseason. 3 of us are going to Canton, Ohio for the Expo, meeting in person for the first time ever. I think we might be doing a live show. That's going to be exciting. But enough lollygagging here. Enough dilly-dallying. There are some things we want to talk about tonight. And overall, 1, it's because there isn't much going on right now, to be honest. But 2, the few conversations I've been able to have with managers that are still somewhat active regarding trading, a lot of the conversations have come to guys that are going to be free agents after the 22 season, and their values are in flux because we don't know their contract situation. Where are they going to be? One player specifically that, I was trying to trade away, Saquon Barkley, but I don't know about the contract. It's not like he's going to land in a worse situation than the New York Giants. So there's a lot we want to get to tonight, a lot of things we want to talk about, but for the most part, it is centered around free agents following the 22 season. And then I want to do a deep look ahead for free agents following the 23 season. So I posed that question to you guys. Both of you are looking at me like a deer in the headlights because you probably didn't look at the notes, but that's okay. We'll pick it up on the fly. Kev in the chat saying OTA hype is here. ETN has no risk. Watson is a bust. Pittman is having an affair with Matt Ryan. He can stick it anywhere he wants. And Najee Harris gained anywhere between 14 and 4 pounds. The verdict is still out. So there's a lot going on, a lot of breaking news. But like I said, free agents, this class, this 22 free agency class that we just got done with, it was kind of lackluster, right?
Yep.
Just to remind everybody, because Mitch says the Super Bowl feels like it was just yesterday. I don't know. Free agency feels like it was years ago. So maybe, I don't know. We're in a different time-space continuum or something like that. But Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson, MVS, Russell Gage, Zay Jones, Cedric Wilson. Those are the top wide receivers that signed during free agency. Quarterback, not much better. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Mitchell Trubisky. Tight end, CJ Uzoma, Ty Conklin, Gerald Everett. Running back, probably the strength of this free agency class, and it still wasn't strong. Cover yours, Dan. But it was Leonard Fournette, Chase Edmonds, Rashad Penny, Melvin Gordon to lead the way. So I want to mention those names because when we get to the names for next year, it does get a little bit more interesting. And I do think it shakes things up a little bit more. But overall, Mitch, and you can't sit here all episode and say, oh, they're all just going to re-sign. They're all going to re-sign. That busting our, balls over here. Come on. What are your overall thoughts? How do you approach impending free agency? We're a year out. So from a theory perspective, how do you go about it?
So I think actually theory-wise, it has changed for me in the last 2 years because the way the NFL attacks things differently. We used to not see big trades. Now we see big trades all the time to where the NFL has turned into the NBA to where you actually see big players moving before the free agency happens. And so I do think it takes a little bit of that luster off. Oh, hey, this free agency period is going to be huge. This is what's going to happen. And then good players end up getting traded. The elite players keep getting re-signed to their team. And then we end up with Christian Kirk as the best wide receiver in the free agent market. And it's like,
highest paid, not best. Highest paid.
Right. But I mean, if that's the guys that we want to change values on in Dynasty, because, hey, he's a free agent, he's going to a new team. I'm like, you know what? I'm okay sitting that out.
It is challenging, and it kind of leads into my next thought here. So we'll just combine it into one before I pass it over to Dan. But Mitch, you hit the nail on the head with the way the NFL is changing. And it's changing in the way that we are seeing those blockbuster trades. We're seeing the wide receiver market just go absolutely haywire because of what we saw with the Christian Kirk contract. I think a lot of it can be attributed to that, what the Jacksonville Jaguars did. But we're not seeing those guys go all the way through their contract and then figure out, okay, am I going to be extended? Am I going to go elsewhere? Now we're seeing the trade and then sign pretty much. Trade and extension. So the NFL landscape itself is drastically going to change the way we go about free agency. And Mitch, you pretty much stole the words out of my mouth, but we are going to be left with Jameis Winston types being the top quarterback that we might typically see. Dan, overall, what are your thoughts here from a dynasty theory perspective? Does anything with these contracts in general, I don't want to point out specific players quite yet, but how does it impact what you do? And he's frozen. I thought he was.
I love it.
I thought muted. I thought Dan was deep in thought there, but then he hasn't blinked in about 10 minutes. Well, Mitch, do you tend to be proactive? Do you react more?
I think Dan is back.
All right.
Dan is back.
I'm back.
Building.
All right. Well, we'll get to that question in a minute, Mitch. All right, Dan. Well, Dan, you have to restart or something.
I'm thinking that we'll give it one more go. I just changed the standard definition here from high def. Apologize to the users. Am I good?
That's standard, man. That's holy cow. Try something else.
Hey, good eye Mac camera. Am I still? Do I need to restart? If I will. All right, I'll be back.
All right. Anyway, Mitch, let's fill the air here.
You're good.
Holy cow! Now we have to hold on. Do I have my other frame up here? Oh,
no,
well, you're the Bauer Club, and I'm Coach Dan.
It's all good. It works.
There we go.
I don't remember what the question you asked was now with all this.
Do you tend to be proactive and get out ahead of this? Or maybe it was you used to be proactive and now you're changing a little bit just because it doesn't really matter all that much.
I am changing now. Yeah. Because I used to be very proactive. I mean, I'm trying to remember Tyrell Williams, right? When he was like the thing and you actually saw him being moved for early seconds because he was the big free agent guy. I still think that's going to happen enough in Dynasty to where I'm going to care about people's values that way. On my personal teams, I'm not going to be adjusting people's values based on, hey, this guy's going to be a free agent. But if someone's willing to give me more based off that, then I still care. Because I think that's a really weird like dichotomy of Dynasty, right? Is like my individual team might not care that let's look. David Montgomery's going to be a free agent, right? But there might be someone else out there who does actually really care. And I think that's the kind of line that you have to walk here with this new NFL free agency that we see.
I think it almost opens up more buying windows than selling windows.
I agree.
And you're going to have to you're going to have to dig a little bit, but I think there is going to be an opportunity that you're going to find those managers that, hey, David Montgomery, what's going to happen after 2022? Is he still going to be a Bear? Is he not? Well, look at a lot of these guys. We knocked them because of the situations they're in. Are we going to knock them again when they move a team? Josh Jacobs, the way he's utilized in Las Vegas, he doesn't catch a ton of passes, even though that changed as 2021 came around. Again, I always have to look at the year because we're talking about 10 different years on tonight's episode. Miles Sanders, the running back by committee there in Philly. Well, he's not signed beyond 22. Okay, well, we should potentially be thrilled about that.
Right? Yep.
So there's a lot of different situations there, and we'll let Dan jump in whenever he's available. But going through these guys now, after the 22 season, let's go position by position. These are probably the most intriguing, the highest value guys. I didn't dig deep and grab every player that has an expiring contract. But Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Drew Lock, and Sam Darnold really bringing us home there. Who stands out to you? I'm afraid to add Dan back here. I don't know. Are we good to go, buddy?
He's golden.
Go? He's muted. Holy cow.
I hear there's a podcast tonight. I'm back. High def, volume on, no delay. I needed that old-fashioned reboot.
There we go. You look a heck of a lot better. Well, we skipped through. We moved through several questions. So if you're looking at the show notes, if there's anything you want to touch on very quickly before we really dive into the players that are going to be free agents after 22, you let me know, Dan. Hey, it's your night. We're just here. Oh, you got to be kidding me. All right. Well, unbelievable.
You know,
Dan, are you with us, brother?
Am I with us? How do I sound now?
You sound great. This is the you sound lovely. Time. Well, what are your thoughts on the NFL free agency?
Thank you, Mitch, for that segue. So my thoughts on free agency, being that there is a Dynasty Theory podcast tonight that I'm gonna happily join and hopefully stay for the rest of the show this time. So, JB, I'm impressed with your list. Let me start there. You know, I did give me some credit, review your notes, and I was ready to do a Google search. I'm like, who are next year's free agents? I was like, oh, wait a second. JB did the homework here, man. He had a pretty extensive list. So kudos there.
Well, you know what? I didn't have to spend any time because it's available 24/7 through the Dynasty Theory Patreon, $5 a month in my tiers. I have the year that their contract expires. You click the little hyperlink. The details are in there. So the work was done. Anyway, thank you.
Look at that segue. Look at that segue.
I like it.
So my just overall scope of free agency, and then we could dive in. When I think of Dynasty rankings and that theory perspective that you're asking me about before the country internet kicked in, quarterbacks concern me a little bit as I look at the list because to me, it's related to stability. If they're a free agent, something's wrong. Like, ink these quarterbacks up, lock them up. They don't let good quarterbacks stay on the market long. Or if they're an elite quarterback, okay, are we in for a negotiation issue here or a holdout or a disgruntled quarterback? So quarterbacks concern me related to stability in Dynasty when we talk about free agency. Then running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends I view as an opportunity, as to me, money and new contracts provide motivation and top conditioning. You know, top-notch Instagram photos there of guys at the higher level. So there is a slight uptick in my rankings because of that motivation going for that contract. You know they're going to be in shape. You know they want their next deal. They don't want to lose their job. So I would say a slight uptick there in rankings. Maybe some desired targets that will go on my list. Age dependent, JB, not price dependent, age dependent.
So let me get this straight. You're kind of into the running backs that are entering the last year of their deal if they haven't had one done yet, correct?
So with running backs, I'll say age even more, because how many contracts does a running back have left? All right. So is it, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Josh Jacobs, I don't want to segue into free agents, but that are playing for their second contract, and they might even get a third if they do well on the second contract. Kind of like, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, they've had some extra shelf life. But if they're going for their last contract, like this is it. How much is that dynasty window for you? So I am a little bit more picky, definitely more age dependent with running backs, but there is an uptick depending on where they are in that age scale.
Mitch, any concerns with Lamar Jackson? Nothing inked yet?
Dude, I love how he's attacking this. Sorry, I getting over my cold still, but attacking the contract, because it reminds me so much of what Kirk Cousins did. But Lamar is doing this without an agent too, where let's say he gets franchised. Let's say he goes out, either has the worst season ever, or he has an injury. What's going to happen the year after that? He's either going to get franchised or someone is going to give him all the money there is in the world. So one way or the other, he's going to end up being $45 to $50 million quarterback. It's just, he could get guaranteed money the whole time while he's doing it as well. So I think it's really cool how he's going about it, but no, I'm not worried at all. I don't care what team he plays for. I prefer it to be the Ravens, but he will be fantasy and dynasty relevant on any team in the NFL.
So what I'm hearing is if there is an opportunity that presents itself that you can acquire, even at cost,
Yep.
You're in
100%.
And I can buy into that. Absolutely. With Lamar Jackson, I almost feel like it's more narrative driven when you're in a trade discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to pay up for Lamar because, okay, then why are you coming to my door and looking to acquire him? Dan, from one Dan to another, Daniel Jones isn't as safe as Lamar Jackson. I don't want to be Mr. Obvious here. But what are your thoughts on Daniel Jones?
Danny Dimes is one of 3 free agent quarterbacks that I kind of put in red there, as I'm really intrigued by. Danny Dimes, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, as they're free agents. Daniel Jones, this is his year. Like, he needs to produce in New York. And I think if he does, they'll lock him up. If they have questions at the end of this year, they're going in a different direction. And now we have even more questions in dynasty fantasy football of what do we do with this guy? Is he an asset or a liability? So I'm a little bit more concerned, but there is an opportunity. I mean, is it a buy low opportunity because of all the uncertainty right now with Daniel Jones? I'm kind of going after some Baker shares, even though, we've talked here in Dynasty Theory. I'm not a Baker guy. Mitch and I have had a lot of fun, I think, hammering on Baker at different points and times. But I think you can get a starting quarterback for the next 3 years, potentially at a very buy low price in Baker Mayfield right now, if he lands in Carolina or Seattle and he gets, 3+ years there.
I kind of view Daniel Jones almost slipping into that, what we saw with Marcus Mariota going to Atlanta this year, like a 2-year deal, kind of prove yourself. You'll have the opportunity. We're going to bring in some other rookie, or if there's another vet on the roster to compete. But I think that's the path, or like a Ryan Tannehill when he went to Tennessee. I kind of think that's the path that Daniel Jones could go down if things fizzle here in New York in 22, because again, and not even the same stratosphere as the Lamar Jackson conversation. We have a comment in the chat from Kev. Lamar Jackson has a reasonable shot at the number 1 overall quarterback any given year. 100%. Absolutely. And you can get him at a reasonable price. And there's a quarterback that we're going to talk about briefly, that's going to be a free agent after the 23 season that I think kind of fits that bill as well. Daniel Jones, anywhere I have him, I have been looking to package him up. I have been looking to move on from him. Do we think there's an opportunity? And we'll introduce a pivot opportunity here, because I'm probably going to be out of commission this weekend for the pivot point. We're on baby watch here. I'm still here, so obviously nothing yet. So pivot point might be on hold later this week. But if you could pivot from Daniel Jones to Matt Ryan plus, I think there could be an opportunity there. Now, I know there's the Matt Ryan, Michael Pittman hype and conversation, But if you have a manager that you see is clearly not looking to contend, and they have a Matt Ryan, maybe they're just intrigued by the youth of Daniel Jones. So I think that's something that you could explore, but that's somebody that it's weighing the odds, looking at the range of possible outcomes and probable outcomes with Daniel Jones. I'm not saying I'm completely betting against him, but there's a better chance than not that he's not worth significantly more this time next year.
So, I mean, you brought up Daniel Jones, Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Drew Lock, and Sam Darnold.
It's ugly out there.
Daniel Jones is the only one besides Lamar Jackson that I think has a chance of playing for the same team next year. Because let's say
Tom Brady,
Daniel Jones goes out. I think Tom Brady's going to the booth, man. I just do.
you did a 180 because of that
I
Booth
did.
contract.
Yeah, it was big. But if Daniel Jones does well this year, the Giants can just put him on the franchise tag. They could be like, prove it. And they have enough money in the cap next year to do it. That doesn't even include how much the cap's going to go up next year as well. But they have like 60 million right now, to where that could be very easily. But then if you are buying into Daniel Jones and you're someone who's buying into that offense, you have to know that his value isn't going to go up, because where he is next year, even if he has a good year, everybody in Dynasty, no one's going to be willing to pay you a lot for him, because everyone's going to be like, it's a franchise tag. He could be horrible again. And so I think he's just that quarterback to where if you can package him up, like John was saying, I think you do it. If he ends up being your quarterback 3 going into this year, something you could probably deal with, but I think you will continually want to move him off your roster no matter how well he is doing this season, because I don't think next season is going to be any better for you, even if he is a top 10 quarterback this year.
I don't think we really need to discuss Drew Lock and Sam Darnold all that much. I don't want to put everybody to sleep too early, but Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo, I think they both present an interesting opportunity here. If Baker gets moved, and it's like it's up in the air, is he going to get moved? Cleveland, it's like they're in a standoff. Jimmy Garoppolo, if he was not injured, I think he would be on another roster right now. So those are 2 guys that I have plenty of shares of Garoppolo. I've had some people not necessarily coming after either of them, but maybe looking to include them in a deal, basically as a throw-in. I'm hanging on to both of them just to see where they land, if they land somewhere, or if Deshaun Watson does miss significant time and Baker Mayfield comes in and says, okay, yeah, I'm here, I'll play. There's going to be a quarterback needy team in your league that is at least willing to move a second. Is it a significant return? No, but it's a heck of a lot better than just including them as a throw-in either situation. Dan, you got Tom Brady on your roster. He's your quarterback 2, all right? Quarterback 2 for production purposes. Let's say, say you have Zach. Carson Wentz. I was even going to say Zach Wilson, who obviously for dynasty purposes, okay, but we're not sure how he's going to perform here in 22. Okay. And you want those points from Brady. Are you riding him into the ground? Is he one of those guys that you're willing to see off into the sunset? Or if the opportunity presented itself, another quarterback needy team approaches you, are you listening, even though it could leave a gaping hole there in your starting roster, your starting lineup?
If I have one of those super flex rosters where I don't have that third quarterback, I've got to find a way to get out of Tom Brady. Now, is that okay? I have enough draft. I have a first round pick or someone else's first round pick. If this is a contending team where I know next year's a deep class, okay, hey, I'll be okay till next year if Brady retires on my roster. But if I don't have the draft capital and I don't have a third quarterback, there's no way on earth I'm going to lose points somehow. I'm going to make it up somewhere else. I'm going to find a way to trade and get another quarterback and not get stuck with Tom Brady, because I don't want to be holding the belt next year and just, okay, I've got one quarterback and that's it. No draft pick. Brady retires. I have nowhere to turn. Now I got to get rid of a big asset to get a number 2 quarterback. That's the worst feeling in the world. All right. That's when John Bauer comes in and he rakes you under the coals for, offering you some quarterback because he has 4 or 5 on his roster. So I can't do it. Got to find a way.
Let me ask. All right. You're 5-0. Your team is off to a gorgeous start. All right. On your way to a championship, you're pretty knocking left and right. Boom, win, win, win. I come to you and I say, here's a 24 first for Tom Brady. An excellent opportunity to cash out. But he's quarterback 5 up to that point. Just another tremendous season by the GOAT himself. Are you intrigued?
I'm intrigued, but I still have to have another quarterback. I need to know I have Cousins next year, Tannehill next year, Matty Ryan next year. I have to have something until, in case, because that number 1 pick next year that you're giving me, that doesn't help me now. I'm not going to win this league with 1 quarterback now. So I still have to have 2 quarterbacks now to move Brady, would be my point.
Okay, so then
However,
I misunderstood. I misinterpreted then what you were saying, because
Okay.
I thought you were saying you could not go into the 23 season with Brady on your roster. Ideally, that's what you were looking to avoid. So I give you that opportunity to cash out.
Correct. But I'm contending. I'm 5-0. I've got Dak and Brady. I do not want to, I want to win this league and cash in, but I also don't want to be just stuck with Dak next year. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I win this league, flip Brady for someone else who wants him, and still keep my team in contending? Give me someone that's not as good as Brady points wise, or maybe is comparable, but not as shiny, and let that be a Cousins, a Tannehill, whatever, and if I'm getting Matty Ryan, hey, I'll take Matty Ryan in the first, and probably won't get it, but
Yes,
you know where I'm going with it. I'm trying to formulate a deal where I could get rid of the GOAT and still contend, so I've got to find a way to do that. Now, again, a lot of my rosters, I've got 3 quarterbacks. So if I had, Dak, Brady, and Davis Mills, or Dak, Brady, and all right, I got Danny Jones. Do I think Danny Jones could survive another year? I need something to make me inclined to be able to trade Brady. Otherwise, I'm looking for a quarterback swap and just to get younger.
What would present a nice opportunity, I think, if you had to go another route. Obviously, I'm looking to contend also. I have a quarterback injury. I offer you that 24 first for Tom Brady. Just, in this situation, maybe in parallel, you look to acquire Matt Ryan from a team that's now 1-4. So 2 separate deals getting it done. Right. Ideally, Dan tells everyone, hey, I want a first and Matt Ryan. And like I always say, I want a pet unicorn, but he's not walking through that door. And I don't think that trade's coming into your inbox.
Random Mitch, example. I'm just thinking another.
I know. Mm-hmm. So again, but Mitch, this ties into exactly what you said to lead off the show. We are rarely going to see young elite quarterbacks hit this point.
100%. The big thing is we can even lead this into running backs now, to where, so there's a good list coming out next year that could be coming out, I will say, that I'm sure you're going to list off. But so I went through, I was trying to think of good running back free agents that have actually been good in fantasy. The only ones that I could come up with are Hunt from 4 years ago, Leonard Fournette from a couple years ago, and then maybe Melvin Gordon. But Melvin Gordon, Fournette, they were really good running backs. So you can kind of see another team buying into them. Other than that, it's like James Conner. And those are the kind of backs that end up going to free agency and you're hoping to hit. But what that's telling me is you might get one of those guys every other year. And those are going to hit. So if you are buying into these narratives of, hey, running back free agency, they're going to go to another team, they're going to do very well. I had a hard time coming up with 5 in the last 5 years that mattered at all, besides a Jamal Williams, right?
I think part of the issue too, and this is something you and I kind of disagreed on, with setting the expectation, trying to predict and project, hey, what's going to happen with that 2017 class? Is McCaffrey going to get extended? Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara. And you kept saying, yeah, I'm not too worried because these guys are going to get extended. Let's be a little cautious here. Well, every one of them got extended. So it almost falls in line with that quarterback discussion, but just more condensed because we're not seeing that longer shelf life. But it almost goes against what everybody preaches on fantasy Twitter.
Yep.
Why are you paying running backs? Why are you drafting running backs early? Why are you doing this, that, and the other? Well, if the NFL continues to do it, and it typically comes down to teams that believe they can compete. Again, Dalvin Cook, Minnesota, not great, but they're always in the middle of, the standings. New Orleans, Cincinnati makes a run to the Super Bowl. Tennessee, perennial contender there in the AFC. So we do see these teams that are willing to invest in these running backs where the offense kind of goes through it, but it ties into the list here. Saquon Barkley. What are the Giants really doing with him? They're not winning.
Yep.
Cut him loose. David Montgomery in Chicago, they need to blow that team up. Cut him loose. Josh Jacobs, I think he's an intriguing one. And Mitch, I want to say that you brought this up, but in our Discord, but why exercise the 5th-year option when you could franchise him if he stays healthy?
Yep.
Why take that unnecessary risk? And I think it was a minimal difference in cost to the Raiders, who now have, they're starting to accumulate some nice weapons. Waller, bring in Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, who's coming off a tremendous season. But Josh Jacobs is the intriguing one that I think could be in Las Vegas still after the 22 season. So it's paused for concern for Mr. Zamir White, who everybody's all jacked about. Hey, he's going to be their lead back. run it to continue through the rest of the list. Then Dan, I want to hear some of your thoughts on this running back free agent class next year. Barkley, Montgomery, Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Damian Harris, Melvin Gordon again, Alexander Madison, Jamal Williams, Darrell Henderson, Rashad Penny again. So a much stronger and deeper free agency class here when we look a year out.
Yeah, this running back list was interesting, and I kind of chunked it into tiers a little bit. Barkley, Montgomery, I think those two are in unique situations in that the Giants and the Bears are new head coach, some new management pieces in place there where they're looking, all right, hey, what are we doing? What direction are we going with these organizations? But both are young and talented enough to.
What about Jacobs?
They could,
you have a new head coach there
as well. Yeah, I probably should have Jacobs in that class as well there. I'm forgetting Mr. McDaniels there is a similar management, just new head coach. All three of those guys are young and talented enough to score a deal. Score not only I was talking about age before running backs, but not just one contract, but potentially two in their careers. Now that doesn't come without risk with either of these three, but I'm willing to roll the dice on any of the three. I think there is talent there. Miles Sanders, man, that whole Philadelphia situation, there's still talent. He's still young. It's just what direction are the Eagles going to go? But he could easily be in that group of talented young guys that could score a contract and be around for a while in Dynasty. Damian Harris, I'm a Harris truther to a degree. I'm really intrigued with that one. I think he's a real solid, good running back, but I'm enticed by Ramondre. Does New England just say, hey, sorry, we got 18 million running backs. We can let you go. We're not paying you. Or do they keep that continuity? He's young enough, and we see Harrison and Ramondre and enough volume to go around for a couple of years. The rest, John, you can just put in a trash can for me there that you listed on here. They're roster fillers. Don't make that mistake of trading any draft capital, even when it's like playoff time and you need it back.
Hey, I don't know. Melvin Gordon, he could have another year after 22, but you made some interesting points with these guys. Damian Harris, I think for production and value standpoint, he needs to stay in New England.
Yep.
And I know people, you don't really know what New England's going to do on a weekly basis, but he's going to get the inside the 5 work. Mac Jones isn't stealing those carries inside there. He's going to get 14, 15, 16 touchdowns probably. It's going to be hard for him to go to a new situation with the limited work in the passing game. That's big for me, and maybe sometimes to a fault. But Damian Harris, I would love to see him stay in New England, even with Ramondre, even with I'm blanking.
James White, Pierre Strong Jr. drafted. They got a variety.
Kevin Harris came in as well. Pierre Strong was the one slipping my mind. But the other 4 above him, if I can use it to my advantage to explore a trade opportunity, get these guys at cost, for the most part, I want to say, besides Montgomery, because I'm pretty even with the market, Barkley, Jacobs, Sanders on my tiers, they're all in green. All guys that I believe I'm a little bit higher on compared to market when you look at the other platforms, KTC, DTC, whatever the case may be. But I'm perfectly fine acquiring them at cost, because if they don't remain in the same situation, can they excel elsewhere? And I think all 4 of those guys have the skill sets that allow them to do that.
Completely agree.
If Barkley and Jacobs have a little chance to reset their market. If the Giants do get things right, and even if like Danny Jones has a top, 15 to 20 year, and maybe the Giants still go in a different direction, but they show, hey, that we could get this right. Barkley's an electrifying running back who's, he's a specimen. So he could make himself relevant pretty quick. And I think Josh Jacobs, if that Raiders offense could be as potent as we expect, he could have himself a really nice year. Monty, I'm a little bit more worried behind that Bears O-line and lack of passing weapons right now. I think they're just still a year away from getting enough pieces to, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Lack of passing weapons. Give me those dump offs. That's what I'm looking at. But
I'm worried they run him into the ground. That's what I'm worried about with Monty this year. Like where do you find offensive production? I think there's gonna be a lot of weight on him and Fields.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a concern from a longevity standpoint, but it's also a nice little uptick for a short-term production. I just thinking about these running backs, it's very difficult to say. And Mitch, you called me out on this several weeks ago, talking about a running back, and I can't remember who it was. But you look at any of these guys, even though I like those top 4, it is going to be challenging for any of them to be significantly more valuable this time next year. So I think the big takeaway here is getting out ahead and really keeping an eye on these contracts, staying in tune with what's going on throughout the league, because typically we're not going to see the big trades involving running backs, right? We're going to see it with the quarterbacks, which we've seen. We're going to see it with the wide receivers, with the reset at the wide receiver market. But running backs, I think typically we're going to see them either re-sign or play out their contract and then go elsewhere and kind of see how that goes. I think we see a lot more kind of 2-year deals. Question in the chat from Mike: what position is the best to franchise tag from an NFL standpoint? I think it's running backs.
I might have to give Miles.
Yes.
Go ahead,
no, I mean, sorry. I was just going to say, I think, yes, it should be running backs, but teams just don't do it yet. But I think they're slowly catching on. And I think we're going to see more and more of it happen as the future goes, because it's always been a lineman. They've done linebackers before, right? I just don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be on the ones to where they're trying to extend the shelf life of the player a couple more years without having to give them, $50 million guaranteed in a deal.
But and you look at the contracts that have kind of blown up in management's faces, Le'Veon Bell being one of the significant ones. And I do believe that, Mitch, I think it's a great point. Why over a year out exercise a 5th-year option if it's available on a running back, which is in decreasing significantly because you're seeing fewer and fewer first-round running backs. But I do think that's the position. Hey, you stayed healthy there in year 4. Let's franchise tag you. Let's see how it goes. You stay healthy again, especially these guys that kind of need to reset themselves. Saquon's got to show that he can stay healthy. Otherwise, why are the Giants going to commit a 3-year deal to him? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I think, I do think that we're going to see it more with the quarterbacks that, it's tough to say though, because the quarterbacks, these teams they're willing to lock them down. And you see the big trades, like, even though it hasn't happened yet, the Broncos, they're going to extend Russell Wilson. There's no way they don't.
Yep.
That would be a complete blunder on their end. So I think, my opinion,
the quarterbacks don't grow on trees. So you're right, John. They're going to lock them down. But the running backs, you've got options. But these guys might be able to be had at a little bit of a bargain. The running back market is not good. I feel bad if I'm an NFL running back right now. But you look at Miles Sanders, maybe we're not talking enough about him, maybe similar to Josh Jacobs, where we see a narrative where the Raiders or the Eagles could have a very explosive offense this year. And if Hurts could just throw a little bit with all those offensive passing weapons, I mean, teams aren't going to be stacking the box. So there is an opportunity with a little less pressure on them to be in just the ideal offensive situation and then get franchised or get a contract.
Hey, maybe the NFL says, screw all of you guys. It's tight ends we're going to start franchising. We did it with
Yep.
Dalton Schultz. We did it with David Njoku. I remember our episode going into free agency in the franchise tag episode, and all of us, oh, no, they're not going to franchise a tight end. There's no way. Like, and we talk about different scenarios and what ifs for Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz, David Njoku. Those are the three big ones I remember talking about, and two of them get tagged. And or did Gesicki get tagged too? No.
I cannot remember, to be honest.
It was either a 1-year extension or tagged.
So I think I predicted
either way
Gesicki get tagged. That was one of them I was excited about.
Either way, he's up after 22. So I think the takeaway there on the running backs, still look to invest in if you would be interested in David Montgomery, if he still had 2 years left on his deal, still be interested in him. That's my opinion here. Because there is going to be some opportunity out there, especially whenever it's a situation that we're not absolutely in love in or in love with. Sorry, I'm reading a comment as I'm trying to speak. In love with, like the Miles Sanders in Philadelphia. And I see Kev says Miles Sanders 1B in the Broncos next year. You heard it here first. That would be really intriguing.
Unless you have Javonte.
I mean, but we're seeing all these guys in a committee and people don't want to talk about it. But all right, so the wide receiver class is a lot more exciting at this point in time. DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Juju again, Hunter Renfrow. And Hunter Renfrow, I mean, would have been with Allen Robinson at the top of this class if he was a free agent heading into 22. But the four big guys there, Mitch, DK, Deebo, Terry, Deontay, all question marks. You could make a case against any of them if you're trying to discount them from a value perspective and trade talks. Are you looking to invest in any of those four? And if so, why?
It's weird because
that size says it all.
It's just those four players, right? I think you could put another 4 wide receivers on that list, but I don't like Deebo. I've never been a huge Deebo guy, and he's not going to repeat what he did the previous year, right? DK, at best, he's going to have Baker Mayfield as his quarterback, and that's just, I'm not doing that again. Terry McLaurin, I love him. So actually, like, if I'm going to go out and I need to get one of these guys, it is 100% Terry McLaurin because he could produce with any quarter. He is the new Allen Robinson, right? To where I don't care what quarterback is throwing him the ball, he's going to put up 1,000 yards a year. And
I think he's a slightly lower ceiling Allen Robinson, but I get your point.
Yes.
I get your point.
Thank you for correcting that because, you know, we're good. But Deontay Johnson, on the other hand, I'm just messing with you.
No. First of all, there's a hair on me somewhere, and but you always know me. I always say hide in plain sight because if I didn't say it right there, you know we're getting a message in the Discord. Well, technically,
it's okay. I just ignore those.
I just want to get out ahead of it.
Deontay, I think a little bit of it was he's a product of what that Pittsburgh system was the previous 3 years with how many times they're throwing the ball, how Ben liked to throw the ball. So that's why I'm not into him. And it sucks because I think where they're all valued in Dynasty is fair. Am I willing to go out and pay that for any of them? No. But if I was going to have to, it would be McLaurin. But the biggest reason why I'm not getting into McLaurin is because I don't trust Carson Wentz to make any fantasy wide receiver relevant. And if I have to deal with that a whole nother year and then Terry enters free agency, sure, I'll get the value bump there, but I have a full 12 months before that's going to happen.
I don't think that's fair to Carson Wentz, to be honest with you.
Okay, which wide receiver has he made relevant?
Well, he had a couple relevant tight ends who were receiving options in Philadelphia.
Yes, he did.
But how much of that was the system the system and the weapons that were available? But Michael Pittman, he was wide receiver 17 last year, 14 points per game. I would not say that he's significantly better, if at all, than Terry McLaurin.
Very true. I stand corrected. He has one.
He has one, and it's the most recent, and it supports my narrative, so I'm sticking with it. So I do think Terry McLaurin could be productive, and from what it sounds like, 49ers are trying to make things right with Deebo. but there's the Trey Lance question mark. So I'm not really interested in investing in him at cost. If he's there, and if he's not there, it's because he's not happy with the way he was utilized. So you lose that rushing upside that he had. Deontay Johnson, he was at OTAs today. But with the quarterback situation being murky, I know Ben was a shell of himself last year, but it kind of really played into what Deontay did well, and he was a target machine because of it. Do they look to run a little bit more if possible this year? Maybe. So at cost, and DK, I have very little DK. I don't think he's in Seattle after 22. So I do think we see at least DK move, maybe Debo, and then Deontay's a question mark. I think Terry gets extended though, but he's the one as well that I'm interested in investing in at cost, and Juju.
Yeah, not
Dan,
much
what are your wide
different here.
receiver thoughts? You're Mr. Wide Receiver over there.
I love the wide receiver position. Not too much hot takey compared to either of you gentlemen, but maybe a little more bullish. Yeah, I think we all beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So I might be a little bit more bullish on DK Metcalf, just knowing how high he was ranked a year ago to where he is now. Would be hopeful, JB, that like you said, maybe he does land somewhere else, gets traded in a year. Worst case, to Mitch's point, he's with Baker. So I want to buy now while it's a little bit lower. And I just be okay with that. So a little more bullish to get DK, but not a lot. Debo, he's a little price high for me right now. So, the value just isn't quite there. Do like him. I think he's got a long, talented career ahead of him. McLaurin, I'll double down with the Wentz take, but with a Washington dysfunction take. I'm just not really crazy about the direction of that organization out of all of the organizations, the NFC East. I'm least optimistic on Washington. Deontay Johnson, I do like. I think, with Pittsburgh, it's interesting. Everyone talks about, anyone's better than Ben last year. Ben was on his last legs. Yeah, that's all true, last legs. But there is something to be said about how healthy, durable, smart he was. What Pittsburgh's getting now is someone that can extend plays when the O-line breaks down, so they could do a little bit more with their offense. There's going to be a little learning curve there for, Pickett once he's ready. But I think Deontay Johnson's almost quarterback proof. I think he's that good of a wide receiver. So he's really like my highest on that list, with hopefully as the Pittsburgh quarterback situation continues to evolve, so does Deontay Johnson. And then I know Juju and Hunter's on that. Juju is just so interesting in Kansas City. I just can't wait to see what Kansas City does. But I'm really just seeing a big spread out target monster there outside of Kelsey, where I don't know how much better of a situation Juju could get. So it is what it is. Hunter Renfrow is just another slot receiver to me. I'm down on Hunter Renfrow right now. Just too much talent in Vegas. And I think last year we saw the best of Mr. Renfrow.
I think his price reflects that in the general market, though. Adding Devontae Adams, I think he's one that does get extended ultimately, and he sticks around in Las Vegas. But how
much is he going to demand, though, JB? They've got to pay Darren Waller at some point here. Like, I'd be surprised.
I mean, he's still a slot receiver, though. Like, I don't think he's going to be demanding that much on the open market.
I don't know. Cole Beasley was pretty bullish about leaving Dallas a couple years ago, and he's younger and probably better than Cole Beasley.
Well, yeah, he's like
it might be a tough one for them to afford. Right? Yeah, there's a lot of thread on those tires there for Mr. Hunter Renfrow.
I got to see
what demand a little more money than they could pay. I'm thinking.
Hold on,
if they pay Waller, they just load it up on Adams.
He was making like $4 million a year, Beasley.
I don't think he's. Yeah, but I don't think Hunter Renfrow is going to go for $4 million a year. Is what I'm saying. I think he's going to demand more, and I don't know if Vegas will they pay more.
I think Tyler Boyd. What was that? 4 years, $44 million. That could be reasonable.
That could be something. A year. That's a lot of money to tie up in your pass catchers. If you pay Waller.
Well, in that division. Dan and I could argue about paint drying. No, it's drying this fast. No. But in that division, they have to have an explosive offense. No.
Well, they got Adams. You're going to pay Waller. Is there enough to go around for a third target in that offense? Is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, you can always secure that slot receiver.
Dan keeps bringing up Waller, which kind of leads us into tight ends, right? Because John has a good list, right? Let me name them. Mike Gesicki, Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, Evan Ingram, Irv Smith, Austin Hooper, Hayden Hurst, Robert Tonyan. Who am I personally buying into this season because I think they're going to be worth more next offseason? None of them. I want Foster Moreau. And the reason for that is I think Waller either gets paid or he's a free agent. Foster Moreau is a free agent next year, but I think the Raiders could bring him back. And he has produced in that offense when Waller's been out. I think Foster Moreau is the kind of prospect that the dynasty community would fall in love with. Let's say he goes to the Rams because Higbee ends up sucking, right? Well, let's just say Higbee keeps being a Higbee. And then so Foster Moreau goes there. Foster Moreau's value is immediately going to go up. I have a hard time with the rest of these tight ends thinking that their value is going to be higher than what it is now in the following year.
The only one that I think there are, I don't think Tonyan realistically he's going to increase too much. I mean, he's worth pretty much nothing. If you ask 11 of your league mates, Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, Irv Smith, if things went well, I just don't think they're going to go as well as people would like. So I actually don't think Irv Smith sees a significant increase, if at all, in his dynasty value. The two that I do believe, Dalton Schultz, if he is extended, and I would love to hear Dan's opinion on that, being the Dallas Cowboy fan, and Evan Ingram. He is young enough and he has done it. And that is what is important, I think, for rising up in value if you're a player like Evan Ingram. If you've done it, we talked about it with Juju, right? If he goes out and has a fantastic season, it doesn't matter what happens next. I think we're looking at top 24 dynasty value, top 24 receivers, not overall, for Juju. And I think Evan Ingram is almost like the equivalent of Juju Smith-Schuster. He came out, had a fantastic rookie season, had drop issues, but demanded that target share in a lackluster offense. So Evan Ingram, I think he's an intriguing one. I have on a lot of rosters. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but young enough. He's done it before. If he does it again, I don't see a reason he's not going to have a better season than Irv Smith. And I know, blasphemy, JB, because Irv Smith is just that 6'2" beautiful tight end that everybody wants. I don't get it. I still don't get it. But Dalton Schultz, Dan, does he get extended in Dallas? Please say yes for his value.
I do, but I don't see what other direction Dallas could go in at the tight end position. So I do see him extending Dalton Schultz. And I targeted 4 of the guys on your list here, JB. I'll disagree with you on Irv Smith, but I mean, to Mitch's point, I mean, I'm not going overboard on any of these tight ends here. If you don't have one of the elite ones, I just want to get one out of the bunch and I'm content. But Gesicki, Knox, Schultz, and potentially Irv Smith could be. I mean, Gesicki's a receiver. Knox is Josh Allen's his best friend in an explosive offense. Schultz, Dallas needs someone to throw to other than CeeDee Lamb. So I think there's a lot
his best friend that garners a 12% target share.
Right?
If I was playing football with either of you gentlemen, because you're both my best friends, we never argue, you'd be getting 30% of the targets funneled to you. That's how I would treat my best friend.
So I think it's the best friend and the system. So the Dallas system is very tight end friendly. Going back to Jason Witten and how they use tight ends, it's just part of the scheme. So it's going to be there. And then in Irv Smith, he's still only he's young enough to be your child, John. And he's athletic and there's nobody behind him and he's talented and he's got the NFL pedigree. And so I think there's an opportunity for him to get some uptick here because he's going really late. He's a bargain is what I'm telling you. He's a bargain.
I got to ask. I don't know. What's Irv Smith's pedigree? Did his dad play?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea, to be honest.
Yep.
How about that?
Yeah, there's NFL genes there. He's an Alabama player. I like Irv Smith. Now, I'm not in that hype train, JB. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, saying he's the next, come to sliced bread and he's going to be a elite tight end fantasy producer. I just think now's the window where if there is still a window open, with his situation and his age and opportunity and volume and all that, I think he could have a good season this year and get inked to a nice contract.
And I want to say, I don't think Mike Gesicki or Dawson Knox go out there and have horrific seasons by any means, but with their situations, I said it coming into this offseason, I thought the best scenario for Mike Gesicki was to remain in Miami. And now you add Tyreek Hill to the mix.
Yeah.
So what's the next best situation when we look a year out? Is it still Miami? Is it going elsewhere? He's super athletic. Dawson Knox in Buffalo. Does he stay? I don't know. Again, for me, it comes down to, if you believe Dalton Schultz is going to get extended between now and next year, you should be looking to acquire him at cost. If you believe he gets extended, Evan Engram, dirt cheap option. If you're in a 2 PPR league in that Doug Peterson offense that has just mediocre weapons everywhere, and I know Evan Engram, you might say he's mediocre at best, but maybe he stands out. So those are just the two guys, again, that I think could pop a little bit. Knox and Gesicki, I think they're destined just to be in that 10 to 12 range for dynasty purposes. No, Mike is getting me going. If Gesicki went to Tampa Bay, oh, he's better than Pitts now. He's tight end 1.
Yeah, he could have like
That's
Drew Lock throwing to him next year or something. That'd be sweet.
I think they do.
Drew Lock, MVP of the Super Bowl.
That's right, Tampa Bay.
I think Miami does re-sign Gesicki. Like, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna try to stop Miami. I think a lot of Gesicki comes with the involvement of Tua. If Tua takes a step this year as a fantasy quarterback, how do you stop him? You got to find a way to stop Tyreek Hill. You got to find a way to stop Jalen Waddle. It's not as easy as it was a year ago when it's like, okay, hey, we could double Gesicki. You could do some different things to try to take him away. There's going to be some opportunities there. I just think there'll be some nice splash games, and there's a little bit more upside in the tank.
Again, it amazes me, Dan. I feel for your wife. I really do. Because if you listen to her as much as you listen to me, oh, you're in trouble. Because you don't listen to a freaking word I say. I think Gesicki has a fine season. That's not the issue. I just can't realistically see an opportunity outside of landing in something like Tampa Bay, especially if Brady returns, that his value rises significantly. Whereas at cost, I think we could see it with Schultz if he's extended, and Engram for the 80th time. Schultz and Engram.
So let me rephrase it. It's a little more attractive in their free agent year with their situation than maybe taking Dallas Goedert, Cole Kmet, Noah Fant. Like we talk about, based on pending free agency, who gets a little bit of an uptick, you can move them up a couple spots. I'm just saying it's an attractive situation. Moves up a little bit because of the opportunity and impending free agency.
Kmet being talked about with Goddard, I'm okay with that. Well, we need some more of that hype to build in before September so I can move a couple of those Kmet shares. And
we have him, I think, in 2 of our co-managed leagues. I like Kmet plenty. I'm not quite there to put him with my man Dallas Goedert. So to wrap up,
Hunter Henry, another one named to Gronk. Give up on Gronk. Like, give up on those guys and go to these young free agent tight ends. Is that better, JB?
Like, you're saying for dynasty managers.
Yeah, like if you're drafting in a dynasty league and you're thinking about fading the tight end and just settling at a Fant or a Gronkowski or a Hunter Henry, I'm saying don't do that. Be a little more assertive and take the Knox or the Gesicki. Make sure you land on it, or Schultz. Land on one of those guys.
Did you really just lump in Noah Fant with Rob Gronkowski, who's not even on a roster?
No, I mean, he's going to sign, and he's Gronk, and, there'll be the hype at some point. And, Noah Fant, there's still some truthers out there. Dallas Goedert truthers out there. I'm just saying, forget about those guys. Get these guys that we're talking about.
What's wrong with Goddard?
I'd rather Dawson Knox or Mike Gesicki or Dalton Schultz.
Oh, okay.
Now, I can get behind that at cost, okay? If you want to add at cost, I can get behind that.
Price dependent.
But that is a critical piece that you're failing to include there. Okay, wrap up the show really quick. I have 30 players listed here. Mitch, give me one guy on this list that post 2023, we're looking at these guys. They're going to be free agents. Who is somebody that you're either looking to move or acquire like now? Because
I got to say, I love your list, But I thought those were the players you listed because you do this.
No,
You
no,
list 15 players, so I thought those were your guys, so I came up with my guys.
no,
So I
no.
will say, so I have two different things, right? I have a player who I don't have a lot of shares of that I want to get more before the post 2023 season. Then I have one that I want to have a lot less of. Okay. It's actually two.
Hit me.
I want to get a lot less. I actually still have a lot of Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. That offense is going to be terrible because neither of them are going to be there post 2023, in my opinion. So I'm out of that whole. Anyone who plays on the Titans, I love Treylon Burks. I plan on moving him before the end of the 2023 season. On the opposite side.
Now, let me say, start doing this sooner rather than later because we're a year out from these 22 guys that we just talked about, and their contracts come up in conversation. So get out after it now. Anyway, Mitch.
And 100, and the other person is, I've been talking about in the Discord nonstop, is Bateman. There just isn't anybody else with the Ravens that is even rosterable as a wide receiver. And then you have like Mark Andrews, J.K. Dobbins, Lamar, and that's it. But they're a great dynasty offense. They're a really high-scoring offense in the NFL. So Bateman is the guy that I'm going to continually try to buy all offseason. His price is getting pretty high. I have offered Tyreek Hill straight up for him in multiple leagues. Get shut down.
That blows my mind.
I'm okay with that because of, the Tua stuff. But yeah, so Bateman is the guy that I'm going to continue throughout the offseason try to buy because I really think once the 22 season hits, this narrative is going to be like, hey, what can you move Bateman for? Because his price is going to be so high that you could get a lot of pieces for him going into the 23 season.
I was just going to get to that. So you're looking to do something with him now because you just think throughout the 22 season, throughout the 23 season, once we approach over the next couple of years, that value will continue to rise. Yeah, okay. I can buy into that. Dan, who do you got here?
I mean, without listing 30 guys, John breaks down by position the post 2023 situations, but just like we went through the free agents for after the for next year. Quarterback position, I'll be watching carefully, John. Russ Wilson and Jalen Hurts situations, as both Denver and Philly have intriguing offenses to me. At the running back position, I'm trying not to be Captain Obvious, but I am a little more intrigued than I've been maybe a previous year with DeAndre Swift. Cam Akers, AJ Dillon are interesting situations. Wide receiver, most specifically, we'll go back to liking wide receivers. Michael Pittman and Gabe Davis are two guys that I think there's some untapped potential. I've had some luck getting some of them in different leagues. T. Higgins seems a little bit obvious for me. And at the tight end position, I think there's still more in Darren Waller while people are getting off him a little bit. And TJ Hawkinson's very intriguing.
Yeah, just to get this on everybody's radar, just to, we're trying to get ahead of this. This is post 23. These are the guys that are going to be free agents at that point in time. Kyler, Russ, Hurts, Cousins, Tannehill, Winston, Ryan, JT, Swift, Eckler, Dobbins, Gibson, Henry, Akers, Dillon, Edmonds, T. Higgins, Diggs, Kupp, Evans, Pittman, Hollywood, Mooney, Cooks, Claypool, Boyd, Gabe Davis, and then at the tight end position, Waller, Hawk, Fant, Kmet, Hunter Henry, Everett, and Higbee. So again, just to get those guys on your radar, potentially looking to do something, because dynasty managers are getting smarter and smarter overall and paying more attention because of how much information is readily available, that these contracts, they don't creep up the way they used to. Oh, so-and-so, he's a free agent after this year. Didn't realize that. Everybody and their grandmother now at this point knows when these contracts are expiring. Get out ahead of it, because I think there are different ways that you go about this, and it could be advantageous for your dynasty rosters.
Final thoughts.
With internet issues and all, he was a champion. He was a warrior. He stuck around. Dan, for the 160th time, what final thoughts do you have for our incredible listeners?
Plowed through tonight. No quit like my New York Rangers. Having a little fun with final thoughts here tonight. If you're bored, I posted this in our Discord. Go to DevontaSmithSoftball.com. This Saturday, I will be scouting for all our listeners, okay? And I will come back to next Monday's show with a report. There's going to be a home run derby and a celebrity all-star game, and live in attendance is going to be Devontae Smith and Micah Parsons. That's the last defensive guy I'll name. Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Miles Sanders, Najee Harris, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore. I think they're the fantasy studs that are there. So I will come back with a scouting report. I'll let you know what kind of shape these guys are in, how their swing is, how serious it is. I will find a dynasty nugget at this tournament here. So that is my final thought for tonight.
Security's going to come over, sir. We said, stop asking them for shirtless selfies. Please, sir, you got to stop. Mitch, what do you got?
The amount of times we're going to have to see like a Dan and Micah picture over the next year. Oh man, it's going to be rough. I just want to bring up like these topics that are hard in Dynasty because that we brought up on tonight's show, because we do see the NFL changing in a way to where they're approaching free agency differently. But all it takes is that one manager. And that's like the hard thing, right? Is we will hear is I'll say, no one's going to want to pay more for Mike Gesicki. And someone will say, well, in my league. And that's the thing is like we are talking on a broad landscape, but that you have to attack every single league differently. So if there is someone there who wants the Gesicki, who wants the Knox, who wants the Dalton Schultz, even though you shouldn't be valuing them any higher, there might be someone that does. And that's what you want to try to attack Dynasty with, in my opinion.
We all have those managers in our leagues that are very narrative driven, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, I read that there's the possibility this could happen. And you might have that manager that will pay a premium. And you're like, well, I didn't even think this was possible. Or I read this situation might come to fruition. I got to dump this player A for pennies on the dollar. And then boom, he gets re-signed in what we saw as the ideal situation. So certainly it helps whenever you know your league mates, whenever you're active, whenever you're around in the group chat, seeing what people were talking about. But that information can be very valuable. Like I said, there's not going to be a pivot point this week. We were going to do it with our patrons. I was going to have a few of the guys jump on to fill in for Mitch because we need multiple people to fill in for Mitch when he's missing.
It's very true.
But all signs are pointing to this baby's not popping out, and induction day is going to be Friday.
Ooh.
So I will still be in the hospital there Saturday. Maybe I'll do like a,
yeah, your wife will love it.
I was just saying a live stream. My wife's like, will you put that down? What are you doing over there? Anyway, we'll be back next week. At least Mitch and Dan will. I'm up in the air. I don't want to completely abandon my family, but we'll see how everything goes. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, I'm John Bauer. Thank you, everybody, and have a fantastic night.